Georgette, welcome. Thank you for taking the time out. I know you've got a lot going on, but really appreciate you coming in. We'll ask, and you have the floor, and then we'll take some questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I was in eastern Libya this past weekend and visited Derna on Saturday, along with the Special Representative of the Secretary General, Abdoulaye Batili, and representatives of UN agencies in Libya. I have been to Derna before. My last visit was 3 months ago. What I saw on Saturday defies comprehension. Parts of the city were barely recognizable, and those areas are now practically empty. People have either left or are dead. Last week's disaster is the latest tragedy to befall Derna and parts of the east. Derna, a city which suffered years of insecurity. The search and rescue operation is still ongoing. The chances of finding bodies as still alive are quite slim, but the recovery of dead bodies is continuing. Given the nature and scope of this tragedy, we're very concerned about the health impact and the potential spread of waterborne diseases as water sources and sewer networks have been severely damaged. We're also concerned that floodwaters have shifted landmines and unexploded remnants of war, leaving displaced people at risk of injury and death. One aspect that cannot be overstated, of course, is the psychological toll of this disaster, especially on children, and psychosocial support is a priority in our response. Our local partners have been on the ground within hours, as were many local communities, local people, and groups. We worked closely with the Libyan Red Crescent and LibAid to distribute initial supplies, including drinking water. We've also deployed emergency experts to help coordinate with the local authorities and with other aid agencies. The response is coming together, and we're trying to navigate the challenges of the damaged infrastructure, particularly some roads and bridges. Teams from 9 UN agencies have been on the ground delivering aid and support to the people affected. In the past few days, UNICEF teams have delivered emergency medical kits to primary healthcare services to support 15,000 people for 3 months. The UN Refugee is distributing blankets, plastic tarpaulin, and kitchen equipment to 6,200 displaced families in Derna and Benghazi. The World Food Programme has distributed food rations to over 5,000 households. The World Health Organization shipped 28 tons of medical supplies and donated ambulances and medical kits. The International Organization for Migration, IOM, has supported 460 families with non-food items and a further 4,000 families now in Benghazi with medicine. Last but not least, I met today with members of the Derna community in Tripoli, and their message was consistent with what I heard in Derna on Saturday. They've asked for Derna not to be forgotten. They look to the United Nations, to the international community to support them and provide them with assistance. They also expressed the wish that this tragedy, this huge tragedy, serves as an opportunity to bring the country together and unite all Libyans. And this is a message which I'm sure everyone can and should get behind. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Georgette, we'll go some questions. Yes, please go ahead, Adan.
Hi, thank you very much for the briefing, and I suppose on behalf of the UN Correspondents Association, thank you for meeting with us today. My question for you is, do you have the latest figures on how many children are impacted by this disaster?
Well, yes, UNICEF has been compiling these figures, and it's many thousands of children are impacted. And it's not only children in Derna, it's children in the surrounding areas. So those numbers are being compiled. And let me just get the exact figure for you. It's about 300,000.
Thank you. And can you give us any details about the return to school? I know there were hopes that schools would reopen and kids would be able to restart normal activities.
Yes, that's a key priority. There are many displaced people living in schools, both in other parts of Derna and the surrounding area. So the effort now is really to move those people to safe shelter and get the schools open so that kids can go back to school and there can be some resumption of normal life, not only in parts of Derna, but of course in Benghazi and other areas.
Thank you. Ephraim, you were in the back.
Thank you, Steph.
Arab
Thank you
News.
so much, ma'am, for doing this briefing. Ephraim Kosaifi from Arab News Daily. I have a couple of questions. First of all, do we know how much money do we need to address the situation, the emergency situation? Is there a number that you expect to be asking the international community for? Second, how do you see the reaction of the international community so far, and what's your message to them? I also have a third question, if that's okay. Have you met with the Libyan leaders, and how are they addressing this tragedy as well? Thank you.
We issued a flash appeal to the international partners for 71.4 million to address the immediate impact of this crisis. There was also SURF funding that OCHA has put out for $10 million. We have met, I have met, UN has met with the Libyan leaders in all parts of the country about what the situation is and how they can work with us, with other members of the international organizations, with Libyans, with each other, to address all the needs of the people affected and really take forward early recovery, in particular humanitarian relief and search and rescue. The international effort is well underway, the international aid effort. There are many countries who have stepped up and are providing different kinds of international support. Search and rescue teams from several countries have been on the ground for several days. There are ships and planes coming into Libya to support the international aid effort. So it's underway.
Thank you. Deji, China Central TV.
Hi, ma'am. Thank you for the briefing. Deji Xu with China Central Television. You, in your statement, you mentioned that Libyan people urged their political figures to unite the whole nations, and you also mentioned that they said they explored the possibility to work with each other to help the relief. But what has they promised to do with working with each other on this, and what do you think is the sentiment for the political leaders that they could probably take this as a chance to reunite the whole nation? Thank you.
Thanks. The UN, the SRSG, other UN actors have said very clearly, now is the time. If there ever was a moment, it's now for all the Libyan institutions and authorities to come together and work with a unity of purpose and a unity of effort. And there have been exchanges between the authorities on getting relief to the people who need it quickly. There have been pledges, financial pledges of support from the authorities, the Libyan authorities, to provide substantial funding to the relief effort. This now needs to be realized. From our perspective, of course, more always needs to be done in terms of unity of effort and getting all authorities and institutions behind behind the recovery of Derna and the surrounding area.
Thank you. Stefano?
Thank you, Stefano Vaccara, La Voce di New York. I have two questions. One is about actually the number of death, of estimated death. There was a number that was coming out about 11,000, and apparently the government there, the local government there, the East government, Tobruk, has been contesting this number, saying we don't know how the UN came out with this number. So who came out with this number, if you can confirm if it was the UN or somebody else, and what do you expect will be around the final number? Because between 3,000 and 11,000, there is a big difference. And second question is about the situation of migrants that are at the moment in the area. Can you tell us if there are people that are, I don't know, they are in the same situation like the Libyan people, but also they are no resources, and if they're trying to leave the country to go to Europe, or I know that you just mentioned the IOM, they's taking care of people there, but there is this problem, and there are people leaving, trying to cross the Mediterranean at the moment from Libya?
On the numbers, the WHO number of confirmed deaths according to their processes and the procedures in place in Libya is close to 4,000 deaths, with several thousand missing, at least 5,000 people missing. So those are the numbers that we're working with at this point in time. That number that came out a few days ago was, I would say, an inaccuracy that came from a number of different sources, and we of course then corrected it and put out a number that could be verified. So that's the situation with the numbers, and often in the early onset of such crises, there is confusion about numbers, really about numbers as the assessments are underway, as more bodies are recovered, as people and communities start putting together lists of missing people. On the situation of migrants, there were some migrant communities in the area, and they are part of the overall displaced population. As we know, some 30,000 people have been displaced from Derna and are in surrounding areas. So they are being addressed as part of that displaced population. And I think the spokesperson already answered earlier in this session questions on migration.
Thank you. Joe Klein, and that?
My question was
Perfect. Okay, Georgette, I know we need to let you go, so thank you very much for taking the time. And please come back here whenever you can. Thank you very much, and all best
Thank
to
you
you and your
very much.
colleagues.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.